Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And have a couple of headlines here. Some interesting news here with this one from Zero Hedge, which the headline reads: Congress votes to integrate U.S. military tech and supply chains with Israel. All right, and immediately, the precept that comes to mind is, what's that in, there it is, Jeremiah 49, 49, 20, 50, and 45, they say the same thing for the most part. But the latter part of this, right, where I'll just read it through, but I'll focus on the latter part, Jeremiah 49 and 20, which this is referring to the least of the flock, referring to Israel, okay, not the real Israelites, but the Israelis, or Amalek. It says here, therefore hear the counsel of the Lord Yahweh that he hath taken against Edom, and his purposes that he hath purposed against the inhabitants of Teman. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. And now we see how through Israel's actions, you have this conflict that in the going on in the east, right, involving Iran, the Gulf regions, and the U.S. Right, they've been drawn out into the region now, but that drawing out isn't going to stop there. More and more nations are going to be drawn in there like a vortex, eventually fulfilling the prophecy of this Third World War. But it goes on to read that surely he shall make their habitations desolate with them. You see that? And so when you see Israel basically through its actions, because it's practically tied at the hip with the U.S., through its actions, by it attacking Iran, the U.S. had to join in. The U.S. had to attack Iran as well. What that means is those that view Amalek as a foe are going to view the U.S. as a foe as well. So what this here integration of military tech, of intelligence, and it's going to list all those things, it's kind of like joining them into one, which is just going to basically, now they're just going to consider two halves of the same beast, or two halves of the same adversary. Okay. So most definitely it's interesting too, because in the scriptures we know that Babylon is going to be made dissolved, but the land of Israel is also going to be dissolved by those missiles. So it says here, the House of Representatives will vote today. This is Wednesday, July 22nd, 2026, on final passage of the $1.15 trillion National Defense Authorization Act, right, the NDAA, for fiscal year 2027. And with it, Section 219, the United States Israel Defense Technology Cooperation Initiative, a provision directing the Pentagon to expand and accelerate the integration of U.S. and Israeli military technology, supply chains, and defense industrial capacity. And when you look at the things that they've been doing over there to the Palestinians and so on, using this kind of technology, you can only imagine what they're getting ready for. So if they're gonna vote on a bill, which they've passed, they've baked in this portion into that NDAA act, okay, and you have people in America that are anti-Israel, and so they're letting you know that Slakia, that your views and your opinion doesn't matter. In fact, it can be viewed as anti-American, because now they're merging it. So being anti-Israel would be like being anti-American. It says here, on paper, it is one section among hundreds in a sprawling must-pass bill. And so it's interesting why they put it in this bill, right? In practice, it has become the single most watched line item in the entire package. See? So reading a little bit about what it does, it says here, This designates an executive agent inside the Department of Defense whose mandate is to expand and accelerate joint research, development, co production, and industrial integration with Israel across, listen to this, next gen warfare domains, that's missile and air defense, counter drone systems, cyber and electronic warfare, artificial intelligence and autonomous systems, quantum technologies, directed energy, biotechnology, and defense manufacturing. And that's just the ones that are listed on here, with explicit pathways for moving Israeli origin and jointly developed technology into U.S. programs of record. So different forms of technology that they use in Israel can be used in U.S. programs. Okay, this is part of that integration. And then they're gonna, if they're already integrating on this front, they're gonna obviously merge in. What they're trying to do is merge in their militaries as well, so they become like one force, rather than, oh, at least the story they like to tell so much is, oh, they had to get aid from the U.S., and then they got to get help from the U.S. Now it's one. So if Israel's attacked, that's like U.S. is attacked. Let me jump down a bit and see what we got in here. Jumping down, it says executive agents are permanent bureaucratic machinery. They outlive administrations, and a statutory mandate to expand and accelerate only runs in one direction. So what he's saying here is what they're trying to do with this section, 219 or something, with this executive agent designating that isn't something that is tied to an administration, meaning that even after, right, say the case is where the Trump administration leaves, this this executive agent will still be in effect to be able to mandate this expansion and acceleration. As this says here, that's only in one direction, right? So if you're given the authority and the power to expand and accelerate the joint merging of technologies and intelligence between the U.S. and Israel, that's one way. It doesn't say hold or halt or reverse. And that's the point that's being made over here. Also says this is significantly different from America's existing defense technology agreements or arrangements with any other allied nation. Yeah, of course. There was a part in here too that they mentioned. Let me see if I can find that. Look at that. It says here, an executive agent's authority takes precedent over other Defense Department component heads within its assigned scope, meaning the Israel Cooperation Agent could overrule determinations by offices like the Defense Technology Security Administration, the Pentagon body that manages the risk of transferring defense technology and critical information abroad. Okay, so there was a part in here that mentioned that this isn't something that, Congress could just turn around one day and say, okay, yeah, we're just gonna undo this. Hit an undo button and then you all set. So they're letting you know where they're going. They're moving very quickly. All right, so we'll keep an eye on this and see how that turns out. But in any case, moving on. Next, we have an update as the U.S. continues to strike Iran. Trump vows the U.S. will destroy a bridge or power plant for each Iranian attack on shipping. More telegraphing of intent from President Trump in the below Truth Social post. He said the U.S. military will bomb and destroy one bridge or power plant, including in Tehran, each time the Iranian military shoots at a ship, not even taking it down, but shoots at the ship in the Strait of Hormuz. Now, recently, they also came out and said that they've informed Israel that they're about to start hitting Iran even harder, and escalating more than they've done since the beginning, in the coming days, that is, right? So we're going to see what that looks like. But once you start crossing that line into, as it says, bridges and, actual infrastructure, you're really, as they say, crossing the line over there. Right. And once you do that, you're not going back. That's a new escalation you've introduced. If If there are two people that get into a fist fight and one of them pulls out a gun and shoots the other person, let's say they're from two different gangs, you just started a whole gang war from a fist fight because now you brought a gun to a fist fight. The other person or their gang is going to come back with guns, plural. And now next thing you know, you got a whole major conflict going on because it's escalation after escalation after escalation. Speaking of escalation, there's another escalation here on now. There's a school here. What school is this called? We'll see it when it pops up on here. But basically, which the title is just a bit funny, but it says this sex robot is going to teach your kids in schools. Now, it's not an actual sex robot, but the author, titled it as such. It's a humanoid robot, as they say here. A rural New York school district in the Seneca Nation reservation is set to become one of the first in the United States to place a lifelike humanoid robot in front of high school students. Let that sink in for a bit. Starting this fall, Salamanca High School will introduce Sally, an M-series robot built by Realbotix to assist in coding, robotics, and AI classes for 11th and 12th graders as juniors and seniors. It says here, Sally comes with brown hair, silicone skin, and a Western New York accent. Upper body movement, meaning that it can't move, like walk around and stuff, but it can move its hands and its head. And facial expressions. She remains seated and cannot walk the room. Students will log in with unique identification codes so the machine can recognize them and pick up previous interactions. So this is going to be a robot that most likely is powered by artificial intelligence. New York School District to become one of the first in the United States to introduce a humanoid robot in the classroom. But then they'll turn around and say, let's see, because they said here, this costs less than a New York teacher's salary. So teachers better get ready. But then they'll turn around and say this. The Realbotix education robot will never replace teachers, staff members, or meaningful human interaction, the Salamanca City Central School District stated. That's a lie. When they threw in will never, that's a lie. Because at one point, they didn't think it would even, what they're talking about right now, they didn't think they would even do that, introduce that into the classroom. And now that's where you're at now. So when they make a statement like that, it's lies. Because as this technology improves more and more and more, like I mentioned before, these things don't stay the same. Today, Sally looks like this. Tomorrow, she's going to look like the chick from Ex Machina, if you've ever seen that movie, where you can't even tell the difference between a humanoid robot and a real person. They look so real. They move so real. Their eyes, their hands, all of that. And you mean to tell me if you can purchase a whole bunch of those at a discounted price for, an amount less than, I don't know, two teachers, salary of two teachers. Because remember, listen to this, right? A salary is how much you're getting paid, let's say that year for a New York teacher, right? If you're purchasing one humanoid robot for $57,590, which is less than $95,000, which you would pay a New York teacher every year. You're not purchasing this robot. You're not paying this company yearly. It's a one-time purchase. So are you going to sit here and tell me that using this, let's say students think, oh, man, that's so cool. And, this robot is like, they're more willing to pay attention because they think it's cool and they're fascinated by it. And it's cheaper. It's a one-time payment for maybe three or four of them bad boys, and then you cut down on your expenses. You mean to tell me that they're not going to do that as technology continues to advance more and more and more? You don't have to worry about whether your teachers are teaching the curriculum or not, because the AI ain't going to deviate. You just program it with the prompt and what it needs to do and follow. And you know that it's going to follow that curriculum, right? No teachers getting in conflict with students and any of those things. There's so many angles at which they can come by with this, but then they turn around and say, oh, it will never replace teachers. That's a lie. Okay. What they really want to say is at this point in time, it's not good enough to replace teachers. But once that changes, so does that replacement part. Okay. So, yeah, because when you have people like Elon Musk coming out and telling you that, and different, what's that, Mark Zuckerberg and so on, the difference is they actually are working in the companies that are building these robots. So they see more than the users. So when they make statements like that, there's their perspective is a bit more informed than, let's say, this staff member or teacher or this New York district board, whatever it is, that's telling you this. Okay. Yeah, now they say here it's going to operate offline with no internet connection. It connects collects no personally identifiable information, records neither video nor audio. All of these things, they have to put that out there to, especially in the introductory phase, to keep people comfortable, so people don't feel, like this is too much at once. But it's just a matter of time. Once again, when we look at these kind of events, it's not about how realistic it looks right now, or, oh, this doesn't look like the chick from the robot chick, Megan Fox from Subservience. I know I've been referencing that a lot lately, but don't worry about it. It's a good movie. So, oh, it doesn't look like that. Well, the point is the point is the precedent that's being set. Because once one school starts, that will not be the only school that starts. Okay? The rest of the dominoes fall when the first one falls. If the first one doesn't fall, the rest don't fall yet under normal circumstances. Okay? So this is a precedent in the direction that it's going, and it's not just in schools. Because if it's in schools, then it can be in hospitals. And in fact, there was actually a case where you had some nurses getting replaced by AI, and they were filing a lawsuit for that. And they were handling more of the administrative stuff. So it's just a matter of time. And they've already been mentioning that physical AI, embodied AI, embedded AI. Once it gets comfortable with having a body, shit, the cops are going to get replaced. Anything that you can physically do, they're going to push and market that they can do better, because these companies want money. That's what it's about. They know construction own workers and those that actually contract them are going to pay money for a robot that can physically do that job. They don't have to worry about providing you insurance and worrying about you getting injured on the job, or them having to pay you and your lunch break and all. They don't have to worry about that. They don't have to worry about being human to you if you're a humanoid robot. So these companies know that these other companies are going to pay a lot of money for that. So they're going to push hard for that. Like these companies that are building these humanoid robots, their actual goal is to get it to a point where it can replace physical humans, because that is what's going to make them money. They don't care about you losing your job. You losing your job equals them getting more money. So, of course, they're going to work hard to achieve that goal. That's why it's just a matter of time. Okay, it's just a matter of time. In fact, they already have it now. It's just about when it's tested and marketable to be released in mass. So in any case, that brings us to the end of this lesson. Lord willing, that was edifying and informative to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. Until next time, shalom.